Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. In today's episode, Anthony Power and I are honored to host Paul Gosker. He's the co-founder and CEO of Compass Mining. There's been some big developments and expansions at Compass in recent weeks. We wanted to talk through that in today's podcast and provide an outlook into 2025 for this rapidly growing organization. Now, before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below if you've used Compass Mining services before, what you think of their business model, and your outlook into next year. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's interview. Okay, guys, so that's right. Today's video, for the very first time on the podcast, co-founder and CEO of Compass Mining, Paul Gosker. A real privilege to have you here, Paul. Looking forward to the discussion, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, man. It's my pleasure. It's great to see both of you guys again. I know I've never been on this before, but we've spent a lot of time together in person over the last couple of years. But yeah, great to be on, guys.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're looking forward to the travel schedule in 2025 as well. I'm sure we'll cross paths again. Hey, since it's your first time on the channel, Paul, kind of a tradition question here. Can you tell us about your orange pill moment, how you got involved with Bitcoin, and then ultimately what led you to co-founding Compass Mining?
Yeah, okay. So it's a bit of a story, but yeah, I'll give it a go. So back in I think it was 2013, 2014, um, I was I was bored and I was like, how could I like invest some money and make some extra money? So I looked into a bunch of stuff. I don't know how I ended up looking at like shipping containers and things like I don't know how it happened, but it did. And somehow I learned about this Bitcoin thing. And I had no idea what it was at all. But as I dug into it, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's pretty interesting. It was like this guy just put this out into the internet and it's grown and it's actually worth something now. So I signed up for Kraken, um, and I looked at Bitcoin and Litecoin, and I have no idea what the difference between these is, but one of them's worth more than the other. I don't know. Maybe this is the good one. Um, and then when I realized I had to connect my bank account, I was like, "Oh, this is a scam." I'm out, and that was the kind of end of it. I still have the sign up email from Kraken, and I think it was like March 2014, something like that. So I was still interested in Bitcoin. I just wasn't sure about the whole exchange aspect of it and linking my bank account. So that's when I kind of saw, oh, there's this thing called mining that happens, and dug into kind of what that was. And I looked into, I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but they were these little ASICs made by a company called Gridseed. And they looked like small little circular heat sinks. They were like 11.2 gigahashes at something like 50 or 60 watts. And you could buy a bunch of them. And I remember seeing people with racks and racks of these mining Bitcoin at home. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I don't know what happened. I just kind of forgot about it and went about my life. And then a year or two later, a friend of mine was like, oh, have you heard about this Bitcoin thing? And I said, yes, I looked into that years ago. And I was kind of surprised, oh, this is all still around and it's worth way more. And I probably should have bought a bunch of it back in 2014 when I first signed up to Kraken. So that was the moment where I was like, right, I am gonna buy some. And not only that, I dug into mining again and realized you could actually build mining rigs with GPUs at home, and then you could mine these other coins and you could sell them for Bitcoin. So that kind of took me down that rabbit hole of mining at home, buying a bunch of GPUs, and getting into that. And I think at one point, I was buying Bitcoin. I think it was around six, 700 bucks, and then I think the last time was around 1,600. But kind of from the gains of that, that's where I bought my first, let's say, set of six or seven GPUs and built a rig with, a GPU rig with that, and kind of so I reinvested it kind of back into it, and that's where I kind of learned more about how mining works and exchanges and did a bit of trading, made some fantastic trades, made a bunch of Bitcoin, lost nearly all of it on some terrible trades, learned my lessons, and that kind of brought me into the world of mining, and that led to me meeting the co-founders of Compass. And we kind of realized that a lot of the people mining GPU mining, they were doing that because they essentially wanted to mine Bitcoin, but either the cost of entry for the ASICs back then was just too expensive, or they didn't have the power at home, or whatever. But the whole kind of idea of it really came from everyone, well, not everyone. There's a lot of people doing this because they just want to mine Bitcoin. They can't mine Bitcoin because the people who are actually running these facilities, they don't want to deal with a guy with one or two miners. So what if we aggregated the supply and demand essentially, and we acted as, this in between so that the facility would be happy because they don't want to be dealing with essentially what they think or what they perceive as a larger client, even though they knew our business model, but they'd only ever deal with us, so they were happy. And then you have all the smaller miners who they create all the demand, and we just kind of sit in between and manage that. And that was kind of the beginning of it. We didn't know if it would work out. We got one or two facilities. We convinced one or two facilities to just try it with us, and let's see if it works out. And that would have been around, I'd say, late 2020. And then early 2021, everything just kind of really took off for us. We got our first bit of kind of seed investment from Galaxy Digital, and I mean, from that point on, especially for that year, it was just insane. We couldn't get enough capacity. It grew like it was like this monster that just exploded, and it was nonstop. And to think back, like that all started with a team of like five people, five or six people, and that was it. I remember when we had like about 15 customers, and I had written little scripts to monitor their machines for them. And one of the sales guys, he'd kind of have this little program running in a terminal beside him, and so we'd know if the machines went down. So very basic beginnings at the start, but and that just it wasn't manageable to keep it like that. So we had to scale, and we did. Took a long time. It was very difficult, but we got there in the end.
Did you
So that's kind of
anticipate that sort of growth, Paul, over that short period then when you went into this thinking we can do something here, but you said the demand was really
it was
probably not expected.
yeah, it went from having like 10, 15 customers with like maybe five or six machines each to orders coming in from like 1,000 people all wanting two or three machines. And then one guy would come along and he'd want 500 of them. And we are like, where are we going to put these things? Um, but we got there. We did get there. I suppose in that time, it was there was a real like grab for hosting capacity. Like I remember very clearly hosting capacity everywhere. Nobody wants it.
Well, many
And
many of the
and
miners we talked to now were host miners as well as self miners in those days.
yeah,
So Bit Farms, Hive Digital, Hut 8, all had hosting services as well. But in that period, just after the period you're talking about now, they all sort of
Yeah.
like pulled away from it because obviously with hosting, it depends on the price, and you've got energy price, and is there a premium there, and it
Yeah.
wasn't as profitable as the self mining, so a lot of them sort of like said no to hosting. But we do see, I mean, as well as you guys, we do see obviously like some BitDeer are still hosting, and we speak to them, and you can make that service a real profitable, even in a downturn, because at the end of the day, there's an
Yeah.
expectation, that you're not going to get as much revenue, but you're still going to have to sort of like carry the cost of that. So it's really interesting to hear that sort of
Yeah.
like how you started
Uh,
that point.
Yeah, and I think around that time, it was that when China banned mining, so all the
Mm.
Chinese miners came over, and any space that did exist kind of got gobbled up by them, and then you're kind of left with, well, where can we put these machines? And you're finding hosts that, they don't have a track record or anything. They're just people who are doing this, and you're kind of okay, we'll try these guys out. And sometimes it worked out fantastic, some of them were great, and sometimes it did not work out well at all. Some of them were terrible.
And on
But
top of
yeah,
that, you've also got the machines themselves, the reliability of the machines, because what you're doing then is you're managing a service on behalf of a customer. And, say for instance, if Bitmain or MicroBT, the two biggest suppliers, if they're issuing thousands of machines, we know from history now, even the biggest miners are having issues with batches of machines. It could be a batch of XPs or a batch of S. I think we had Ben Gagnon on from Bitfarms. A whole batch of T21s that weren't performing as well as should be. And so you
yeah,
guys are like the intermediary providing this service for customers. And, not everything can work as like, 100% all the time. So that's a sort of like a separate issue that you've got to try and manage over that period.
yeah. I mean, there's a certain kind of level of, okay, let's say we need 1,000 of these machines. We're going to expect a certain amount of them not to work, so we order a few like extra to kind of account for that. And that's normal, but yes, with certain models, the like failure rate sometimes is shocking. Like it's so bad, and that creates a lot of issues.
Hey, Paul, you talk about the growth of the company from the self-mining, the racks in your home. Now we're going to move over to some of the expansion details in Iowa, this new 30 megawatt site. So it's insane to see the growth that's happened at Compass. But you hit on one point. You said that it was a small team and you've really focused on growing that team to support the business. So this is a question that we've actually asked all of the CEOs on the Q3 earnings calls, but can you tell us a little bit about the team behind Compass and how you're able to make hosting profitable when so many companies have found this an extremely difficult niche?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a pretty big team at Compass. As of today, we're over 150. And a lot of those people are employed in the customer support area because what we found was we had this monstrous growth and we did not have appropriate systems in place to basically cater to all of these clients because a large portion, like we have a lot of big clients, but we have a lot of very small clients, one miner, two miners. And when their miner goes down or something happens, like that is a big deal to them. If some guy has 1,000 miners and one miner goes down, yeah, it's going to get repaired. He doesn't really mind. But like the guy with one miner, he cares a lot. And we had a lot of those small miners. One of the most important things for us in growth was to bring in enough support staff within Compass to actually address all of these issues, to address the tickets that were coming in, the follow-ups on those tickets, the background work that our customer support guys have to do to get the answers for those tickets, to build better internal systems to track how all of that data flows so that anyone who needs it can find it. Like, what's the status of my repair? Okay, well, where do I go to find that out? I'm the customer support guy. So he knows where to go now, but like back then he didn't. So I mean, within Compass, there's a huge amount of people employed purely in that regard. That being said, like directly work with me, Shannon Squires. I know his face has been around for a bit. If I want to know something about mining that I don't know, like I know a good bit about mining, but I don't think I know everything. That's why I have people who are smarter than me in other areas because they can tell me what I need to know. Shannon's that guy for me. Obviously Thomas, he co-founded the company with me. Thomas was involved in mining for years. He worked at F2 Pool long before Compass. CJ Burnett, you guys know him as well. I mean, to think that, I don't really run Compass. I these guys run Compass and the people below that we all have our kind of areas of responsibility. And while it all filters back to me and I'm involved in pretty much most of those discussions, um, it wouldn't be what it is today without the kind of team that I have around me and the teams that they have then under them. There is very much a very important kind of trickle down effect of responsibility. And we like it's not like we just, pull these people out of nowhere, give them jobs and expect them to do something. Like only recently we did a leadership retreat. We had a fantastic facilitator there. We've continued to work with her in the months after that online so that we can all learn how to better manage our jobs, manage our people, manage our personal time, basically everything to make us better at what we do. So the kind of time invested into all the people within the company, it comes back. A lot of people don't know we have unlimited PTO. So there's no limit on the days. And kind of what happens is when people know they can take time off whenever they want, they don't want to take loads of time off because they don't feel like, oh, I have to use this time or I'm gonna leave or I'm gonna lose it. There's no problem. You want to take 2 weeks off in the summer? That's fine. You want to take 2 weeks in the winter? That's also fine. You want to do both? Great. So we have a very important kind of culture, I suppose, in Compass of, when you're there, you're there and you work hard and you really do. But you also need to take time for yourself, take time for your family, take time for all of that. And no one in Compass would ever kind of compromise that. Like, if you're not working on the weekend and it's not an emergency, like no one should be messaging you. Now, some people they're scheduled to work on the weekends, but you know that's kind of the way it works. So we've a very good work environment. People are happy there, and like we do. I like this. So we do town halls every month, right? And I go in, I speak to town halls, and we speak about a lot of the stuff going on. But what we also do is before them, there's always there's an anonymous question form. So everyone who works in Compass can basically blast me with anonymous questions. And I've no idea who they're from. So if they want to ask spicy questions, they can ask pretty spicy questions. It's great to gauge how the company is feeling by those questions that come in because in the past, when times were tough, you could see it in the questions. And, as times progressed, it's all a lot more mellow and, kind of mundane. So, yeah, it can be a very interesting place to work, but there's a lot of different kind of cogs working together. And if they don't work together, it just doesn't work. Big emphasis kind of on that kind of team building, teamwork, especially because a lot of it is done remotely. I know we have Denver, we have a lot of people there. We also have a lot of people in Asia. We have a lot of people in other parts of the United States. So like over the past summer, we did a big team meetup in Denver. We did another team meetup in Ohio, and we did another one in the Philippines, and we did another one in Europe, just to get everyone together because they may not have actually met any of their coworkers before, just to hang out for the day, go do some fun. The one we did in Denver, we went to this cool game show and, we had a few drinks. It was a great time. Everyone had a good time. And yeah, we did similar ones at the other ones just to, be nice for everyone to get together.
Yeah, it's
Because
important.
it can be hard working remotely all the time.
It certainly can. Sounds like an awesome corporate culture. Anthony, we may need to take some notes about that paid time off. I don't know if the anonymous question would work real well for power mining, but maybe some of the other things there, Paul.
Not,
Um, Anthony's done all the onboarding, Paul. He's just been on paid time off since he started at Compass. You may not have seen him in
yes.
the office yet. He just writes his articles, sends them in. No, it sounds phenomenal. And we've actually heard, I did talk to Jarrett in Nashville as well. He said there's really a focus at the entire company about that white glove service. And I'm glad you brought up the single miners, Paul, because you guys cater to a vast audience, right? And you're exactly right. If you've got a large fleet and a portion goes down, okay, it sucks, but it's manageable. If you've got one rig, that's 100% of your operation, and you're going to be very concerned if that goes down. So, really interesting to hear all the way from the CEO down that every single rig, every single customer, it gets that white glove service. Now, I wanted to shift gears from expanding human capital to expanding physical real estate infrastructure. You've just expanded into Iowa. This is a 30 megawatt facility. Can you tell us about what this means for Compass as we're entering this bull market?
Yeah. So the facility in Iowa, we're starting off with 8 megawatts. It's gonna get cold. It's just gonna be hard to build. So we're doing 8 megawatts. We get that up pretty quick, and then we'll expand it out to the 30. But from a Compass standpoint, it's the first time we're gonna have a facility that we own. It's us. Um, we've the whole shebang there, and that gives us, I mean, that kind of level of vertical integration. There's two reasons for that being essentially my main focus. One is, and it's purely from a business perspective, it increases our margins, so it makes perfect sense. Why would any business not do that? But the real kind of the whole point of this is that those one unit customers or small amount of unit customers, they have had difficult times in the past because while we may be working with a partner facility, not always were, let's say, us and the customer incentives. We have our own incentives with the customer, right? We want the customer online. But a lot of times our partner facilities, they were somewhat indifferent to it. That miner's down. Yeah, we'll pull it out of the rack at some point. And we've sent 50 emails. They're telling us stop spamming our email. The incentives don't always align for all three parties in that. And we found time and time again, unfortunately, to our detriment, to our customers' detriment, that a lot of these issues were solved if we did the operations there. And beyond that, if we just own the whole thing, then everyone's incentives are aligned. We want our customers to be online because number one, that's the kind of, the promise we're selling is we want to keep you online as much as possible. Well, number two, it's better business for us when the customer's online. We don't want them offline. It's bad
Control.
business for us financially, reputationally, in every way, it's bad for us. So I know there've been sometimes you get some wild conspiracy theories about things, but if you just look at them from a financial perspective, they never make sense. So no, a business wouldn't do that. So for us, this basically means we control the whole stack. We're vertically integrated in there. We will be able to give the experience that I want to give, that all of my team want to give to our customers without anyone else being in the way. And that's really the main driver for this. Um, and what will happen over time is we will scale out of partner facilities and move more so into facilities where we own and operate them. And it all comes down to being better financially for everyone. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if we're not beholden to the kind of contracts that a partner might have at a higher price point, we can offer our customers better deals on electricity prices. Like we're a lot more flexible. Not just, we'll pull your machine out and replace it, quicker. Um, but there's so many advantages for us and our customers in doing this that it's a total no-brainer. Like, yeah. So that's why
We
we'll repeat that.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned this before with some of the miners we spoke to, and Bryce has always, we've had an analogy, you can either own your own car or you can rent a car, and how you treat a rental car is like his analogy of how you're hosting with a client, potentially.
Yeah.
And taking that a stage further, if you think about what you've been adopting, really is like an asset light strategy in terms of like using other facilities to do that. So you don't
Yeah.
have to outweigh. I mean, building this facility at Iowa is not they're not cheap to build these facilities. There's going to be a lot of
No.
capital involved there. And so, you've got to raise capital to do this. And then if this is your first one, this would be like effectively like your pilot, and you'll learn a
Yeah.
lot of lessons from this. And it's like saying, well, we'll make sure that all our future ones. I mean, it might be that if you can have good relationships with good clients, and we'll come on to the Cathedra update in a second. But if you've got a relationship with good clients like those, it might still be a good option for you to do, rather than have to, to build infrastructure. But I mean, bear in mind, in 2021, I was in London chatting with Fred Teal, the CEO of Marathon Digital, and they were all asset light at that point in time. If you ask Fred Teal now about asset light, he's got a different opinion altogether, and they are buying facilities as quick as they can to basically gain that control, which is what you emphasized in your update there. You want to be able to control. So when the customer rings up, you've got the access to make the change.
Yeah.
If you're sat in a client's facility and they've got some of their own machines there and some of your machines, who do you think they're going to service first? I know they're going to
Ex
service first. It's
exactly.
so it works. I'm not saying hosting with another client is it shouldn't never be the case, because there's some really good. And I've spoke with Cathedra many times on social media. I like the team there, and I'm sure that'd be a great partnership. If you can sort of like just talk through how that partnership came about. So I think it's a 10 megawatt facility that you're going to be effectively running the facility on their behalf,
Yeah.
aren't you? And having a profit share
Yeah.
after all the sort of power costs have been passed through. But tell us more about how that got to the stage where it is now, and what the future looks like for that contract.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of a case of one person having a need and another person having a need, and they are perfectly kind of symbiotic, and they bump into each other, and it's like, oh well, we have this power, we need to do something with this. We're not doing that with it for a while. In the meantime, what do you think? And we're like, well, we have these machines. We don't have anywhere to put these ones. Like these aren't necessarily, they're not like customer machines. They're ones that through like various ways one day we turned around and we're like, how do we own so many of these? We never set out to be a self miner or anything, but somehow we ended up owning a bunch of machines, and sometimes that comes in the form of it could be payment from a facility we used to work with, and they're like, look, we don't have cash, but we have 1,000 of these machines we can give you as kind of payment in kind. So a lot of it comes around that way. And so yeah, look, we end up with these. They need to use power. We have these things that use power. So why not put our heads together for a while and we'll do that. So that's kind of it was just a perfectly symbiotic use. Makes sense with the power rate, makes sense with the machines that are there. It's better them sit on, actually being used rather than sit on a shelf somewhere. So that's it. It was just symbiotic.
In terms of strategy, then, and looking at your diversification, I mean, you've just mentioned there that you had a stack of machines yourself. I mean, is there any future benefit of becoming, a self miner yourself? With the Bitcoin price the way it is at the moment, rallying towards 100,000 every time we blink. Um,
Yeah.
what do you see as going? Not maybe in 2025, but do you see further on the line, maybe an opportunity to move into self mining?
So To a degree, even if you take the traditional kind of meaning of self-mining out of it, right? Um, we do want to self-mine, but not for the reason most people are going to think when they hear me say that. We use self-mining as a service recovery. So, for instance, we have to move machines from one facility to another because I don't know, the contract expired, the other guys they don't want to host anymore, whatever it is. So there's going to be a period of time where those machines are in transit. Now, obviously, our customers don't like that. Hey, my machine's down. If the Bitcoin price is down, they don't mind. But if it's up, they do mind. So if we have a certain amount of machines self-mining, we use those for service recovery. So we call them temps. So we put the customer onto a temp. So he had a J Pro, he had one J Pro, and now that's down. We have a temp J Pro pointed to his account. So he's still mining. So effectively, his machine is turned off, but he has the equivalent one pointed to him. So that when his machine gets plugged in its new destination, we then turn that temp off. But in order to do that, we always have to have a certain amount ready to go, kind of mining away there. So with regards to that, yeah, that's definitely something that we currently do, and that we will expand a bit in the future. But with
Is that
regards to
along the
kind of,
lines of like a cloud hash rate type thing you could offer as a service?
I mean,
Where I mean, if you look at what Bitdeer have been doing, they do the hosting, they do management services, but they've been really profitable in previous periods using this cloud hash rate, where customers effectively are buying hash rate over a period of time. But it's that the machines are effectively still owned by Bitdeer, and as soon as any payments stop, we'll always revert to Bitdeer. So what Bitdeer do then is
yeah,
they pop them as self-mining machines. But that service, and because it was in Asia, and I don't know if the US market would accommodate that, but it was very popular in Asia, especially during the bull cycle. A lot of people wanted to be
yeah,
involved in Bitcoin mining and didn't want the hassle of going out there buying machines, but they're prepared to buy some hash rate. And if the Bitcoin price, increases and it's ahead of the energy price, then you get, they share the sort of rewards with each other. Is that
yeah.
something that you thought about as well? Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, so that kind of cloud mining, I think there may be some legal questions with it. I'm not an expert on it, but with regards to, I suppose, what we're doing with these temp machines, like it's a legit machine. It has a serial number. That's it. So it's not, let's say, cloud mining. Cloud mining, yeah, I mean, cloud mining, it's been around a long time. Um, I think if the contracts are done correctly, it can be good for both parties. I think historically, and I'm not pointing out anyone specifically, but historically there have been some, let's say, questionable contracts that have gone out there and given it a pretty bad rep. So it's not something I'm an expert on, but definitely something that could be explored. But I suppose in the realm of, and I found this a lot in the early days. I'd come up with this cool idea, and I'd discuss it with the guys, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that sounds awesome." And then we were like, "Okay, we better speak to legal about it." Oh no, you can't do that. That's like totally against this, whatever, financial regulation here. That, and I'm like, "Oh crap." That was such a cool idea. But I that used to happen quite frequently.
Hey, as long as you're having the ideas, that's what matters, right? Now,
Yeah,
one area you probably are an expert on, we've heard a lot of the miners, one of the big, I guess, strengths of this sector is the underlying business, the infrastructure, the rigs also appreciate with the price of Bitcoin. So the next question for you, Paul, is from your position there, how do you see the price of ASICs change as Bitcoin price increases, both on the secondary or used market and on the new market? What can we expect to see in this bull run?
so I mean, historically, if I remember some of our most early customers, they got in, they bought S7, I think it was S17s, T17s. There was a couple of other miners. I don't remember the exact models, but they bought those in, like, let's say late 2020. They mined with them for a year and a half. Mined whatever amount of Bitcoin they mined. It would have been a good amount of Bitcoin, like worth a lot by today's value. And I remember them selling them on the marketplace for like 4 or 5x what they paid for them. So like a lot of people don't treat this the way they would treat like a trade. They're looking at it as I'm just buying this thing and it's going to depreciate over time. It will depreciate if you hang on to it from the bull market down into a bear market. But if you buy it in a bear market or if you perfectly time it, kind of tail end of a bear market, beginning of a bull, like maybe we are now, um, you can get it for cheap, mine the hell out of it for a year, year and a half, whatever, and then sell it for a multiple of what you paid for it. So you just won like entirely. And people did do that. A lot of people did do that. And then likewise, a lot of people bought them at the top of the bull market, thinking, things are going to keep going this way. And like any trade, you people buy the top and then, they're salty a few months later when things start to depreciate. Um, but like I said to one of my kids, he bought himself some, let's say, questionable coins during the end of the last cycle of things. And I said to him, I said, just hang on to him. Just hold on to it. It'll shoot up again in the next bull run. And, year or two later, he actually just sold a bunch of them yesterday. And yeah, 2 or 3x what he had. So it's difficult to hold on that long with miners, but typically what you will see is the prices. I mean, the prices will go up. The price of power has already started going up from our perspective. So let's say a month ago, where we were talking about contracts, and let's say the price of power was set in that contract. Even now, it's actually now 10% more. It's kind of like, hey guys, we need to revisit this. Now, these aren't contracts we've signed. They're kind of ones that we're just, chatting through. But with that happening, you will start to see the price of ASICs will creep up, and they'll keep creeping up, and they'll creep up to ridiculous levels. Like in the height of a bull market, yeah, it will be what you would pay for like a new gen miner right now. That's probably what you'll pay for old gen miners in the kind of height of a bull market. So I mean, it very much follows that kind of trend. Um, Sales wise, I suppose you know, with Trump, with Bitcoin running, all that, we are seeing there's not massive amount of retail kind of buying at the moment. But there has been people who are, you know, they have a bit of risk tolerance. They're smart enough to realize now's the time to buy stuff. So what we're seeing is spikes. We're getting spikes in buying. It's not like a gradual curve for like one day, it's just bam, we get slammed with something that is bigger than the last 3 months combined. And then it's quiet for a few days and then you start to get another. And that to me is kind of usually when things start, okay, it's heating up now. Um, yeah.
In terms of miners, though, I mean, are you using well, I'm saying there's three big suppliers, and then you've got a number of new entrants to the market this year. You've got the likes of Bitdeer bringing out they brought out their Seal miner, already on the third version of that one, and Block will bring out their model this year. And there's other new entrants to the market. Auradine for Marathon
Yep.
Digital, they'll bring out a machine. Do you get to test any of these machines as well as the big suppliers?
Yeah, so we do. We have played around with some of them. I know Auradine. I think we actually have a video. We've a video released. I think with Kip and his fantastic voice tearing that down. Um, but
I think I
yeah,
remember that
so
one actually.
yeah, he's such a good voice.
He brought the machine in and just go to pieces on it, don't they? Take it apart and look at it and all that. So I've seen those videos. They're really good.
So yeah, the guys get them, but for the most part, people want, for the most part, people are looking for their ant miners and they're looking for their, you know, Bitmain and MicroBT, basically.
Yeah.
Um, there obviously there is the other manufacturers there, but I don't think any
Yeah,
of them
you've
have
got about
really.
95% of the market with those two there, so you're not going to be
Yeah,
falling short. What
yeah.
one sort of like question I'd like to ask is obviously at the moment you're a private company. is there any sort of like thought process over the next few years to maybe go public with an IPO, which gives you potentially more opportunity to raising capital?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I don't know if I want to be the CEO of a public company. That's it sounds like a lot of bother. But yeah, look, realistically, um over the course, like it, let's say, okay, this is the beginning of a bull run. We're gonna absolutely smash it for the next, 18 months or whatever. It's gonna be back like 2021 again. Um we would look to do something, some sort of a strategic transaction during that time. Now maybe it's not going public. It could be some sort of private M&A, but yeah, we will look to do something, but it needs to be the right something. We're not in a position where we have to, but like you said, if we did go that public route, access to capital, building out more sites, rolling off those partnered contracts as they expire into our new sites that we've built, it does make a lot of sense. Like there's a very compelling case for it. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly what we're going to do, but it's certainly not off the table. Like if the right thing comes along, then yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of options. We've just seen the likes of Griffin Mining do like a reverse merger, and
Yeah,
effectively, I think they bought out a cannabis, which wasn't really a business anymore, but they took the company,
yeah,
and it's sort of like it reduces that cost of actually going through a formal IPO yourself. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot. You've mentioned merger and acquisition. We always look at some of the smaller miners and work out, how are they, and these are the public miners, how do they grow? And it might be a case of what you see is some of the smaller miners joining together under
yeah,
one umbrella and growing that way. And that might be the way forward. You know,
yeah,
the challenge is, and I've said this on many podcasts, is you've got a lot of companies out there that can, and you've got a lot of companies out there that can't in terms of growth. So how do you get to the next level? And so that's something obviously to think about. And you've mentioned the fact that you always keep your eyes open for M&A activity. But yeah, certainly it's interesting. And to go to that next level and raise capital, that's probably the route there. I mean, you've already mentioned that you had an investment initially from Galaxy.
yeah.
How many more sort of like of those seed investments can you sort of like take before you've got to make the final decision, really?
Yeah, no, it is interesting. And like that, there's a lot of ways to become a public company, get access to those capital markets without necessarily doing an IPO. Like you could have RTOs, you could have like a SPAC or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to kind of to get to the pretty similar place.
Just make sure you're US when you do it, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Don't go down the Canadian routes.
I was thinking
No.
the same thing as you, Anthony. Might be able to pick up a distressed, smaller self miner and get
Yeah.
yourself a few facilities in the process there, Paul. But final question for you. We've got about 5 minutes left, and then I want to open it up for closing thoughts. We obviously have a new administration coming in the States. Donald Trump, very pro Bitcoin. He's teamed up with RFK Jr. A lot of Bitcoiners are now going to be in the federal government. And we wanted to see from your perspective, obviously Bitcoin price is the in your face change here or update since the election. But we've heard things about tariffs. We've heard things about relocating data center operations. So can you talk to us a little bit about what this Trump administration is really going to do for the Bitcoin mining sector overall in the next 4 years, Paul?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, look, I know what I've heard promised. Whether or not those promises materialize are, a whole other thing. But I think by having like I think we're in probably going to be in a better position. We have a more like Bitcoin friendly government, um, that are, willing to that are either already involved in this or at least open to understanding that this is part of the future. It's not going anywhere. I think we're way past that whole you know just ignore them, they'll go away, they're just a bunch of nerds kind of thing. Um so I think that will be nothing but beneficial. I think it will probably introduce more regulatory kind of clarity around certain things. Now, that can be a double-edged sword because while they introduce that clarity, they could, oh, well, there's a tax on this and there's a tax on that. But I mean, that's the kind of price that you pay to have very clear rules surrounding things. There's also the Bitcoin Reserve. I don't know, did he mention or did anyone mention that kind of since, you know, the election, would it be, are they going to buy new Bitcoin? Are they going to just
Sounds
hold
like
what is already?
Sounds like they're going through with it, Paul. Yeah,
200,000 a year for 5 years for a
5 years.
total of a
Yeah,
million. Yeah. Is what
Okay.
Senator Loomis's bill states as of now. Yeah.
yeah. They've already appointed Dennis Porter as the strategic reserve lead as well. So he's gonna that's someone great because we speak with Dennis many times in the space, like so. That's he's been on the podcast 2 or 3 times recently, so
Yeah.
no, that's great. It looks like there's a momentum in that particular bill.
Yeah.
It's apparently it was the fourth most read bill of all time.
Wow. So like
Mm.
that's what like if that comes to pass, right, and everything
Game over.
happens that
Yeah.
way, surely you're going to have other governments around the world being like, oh, we should probably pay attention to this. Like there's a lot of governments around the world that followed the US in the past when it comes to legislative things like, I don't know, the war on drugs kind of stuff that springs to mind. Like a lot of worldwide legislation only happened after they did it in the US. So hopefully this one being a positive one, it has a knock-on effect throughout the rest of the world. And I mean, look, if you have a few countries and they all want to have a million or two Bitcoin, well, that's fantastic because
Great
that's
numbers to go
really
around, Paul,
reducing
isn't
the
it?
supply.
No kidding. Yeah, if you get 21 of those countries, we're really in trouble. Hey, I know we're at time here. I just wanted to give you a chance to close out. Plug Compass as well. I know you've talked about the marketplace, you've talked about the hosting services you guys offer, but for people who are watching this, maybe they don't really understand what Compass can help them out with or provide. Maybe just give a quick update on the services and then some closing thoughts there.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we provide essentially is a easy way to get into Bitcoin mining. Now, I would emphasize that anyone who's considering getting into mining, they read the articles on our site, read articles on other people's site. These are real machines. They break, they need to be repaired. It's real mining. It's not just, a fantasy thing in the background. So, like, you need to understand what you're getting into. And as long as you're okay with those risks, um, come to our site, see what the machines are. There's secondhand machines, there's brand new machines ready to go. Um, we are rolling out some new features. One of the newer features we have is like essentially prepaid credits, and what those credits can be used for is, let's say, repair invoices. They can be used up to a certain amount on a new miner purchase or for your hosting invoices. And by, let's say, purchasing those credits ahead of time, I think off the top of my head, it's up to a 20% discount depending on how many of them you buy. So we're trying to come up with as many ways to reduce that kind of barrier to entry as possible. So that's one way we can reduce the kind of month-to-month cost of running your miner. Um, there's a lot more coming over the next few months, and it is especially targeted at reducing the barrier to entry from a cost perspective for new people. Um, but yeah, we're there. We have an amazing team. They're very, responsive. They love hearing questions. There's an insane amount of content on our site. I've lost track of it. Like I remember when there was like 15 articles on it, but Anthony, you're to blame for some of this. There's just an insane amount of them now.
Getting
Um,
close. I think getting close to 90 now. I think so. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of reading in there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you're looking to, if someone wants to understand mining, I'd say get something small, get it at home, maybe a bit axe, something like that. Once you know and you understand mining, then if you want to get like the newer gen ASICs, that's when you do it. But don't go into it blind would be my warning, especially not in the bull market. Like I don't want people to have bad experiences. So like educate yourself on what you're getting yourself involved in. It's not like making a trade on an exchange. This is a real thing. It breaks, it'll get fixed, you'll be back up and running. But, just know what you're doing. And I mean, I'd say that for anyone going into a bull market, if people are watching this who are like they're getting into crypto, getting into Bitcoin, they want to trade some stuff. They saw some, I don't know, random dog coin kicking off their friends, said really educate yourself because you can lose everything in like a matter of seconds if you're not careful.
No, it's a great word of caution, and obviously going into this bull cycle, a lot of new people interested in the space. So we'll actually leave the compassmining.io website in the section below. Go on, take a look, you guys, see what services and products they offer. Paul, always a pleasure. You're an OG in this space, a wealth of knowledge in terms of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. We look forward to having you back on soon to talk about some of these new steps that Compass is taking to really open up opportunities for first-time miners. So thank you for your time. Appreciate everything you're doing for the space. You guys, if you have any questions for the team, leave them in the comment section below. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here Monday.